Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today is the 21st of April, 1st of April, and we are going to start on chapter 2.2. Okay, so what have we learned so far in chapter 1? Chapter 1 was just basically an introduction. Chapter 2.1, we have learned about, in detail more about user interface. You have seen the video. I've shown you the video on user interface. You've also understood what is command line interface and everything. What is the disadvantage and advantages of having either user interface or graphical user interface UI or the command line interface. In today's class, we are going to understand about file system. So chapter 2.2 is all about file system. All right. So we are going to learn, or we are going to understand from the beginning, from the olden days of operating system, what was the type of file system that the operating system used, up to what is the type of file system that is being utilized in the modern day operating system. But before that, we need to understand what is the definition of a file system. So file system is a mechanism of how the operating system stores, catalog, and retrieve files. Okay. So what do you mean by store, catalog, and retrieve? So these are the three key points or terms that you need to know. Storing is how the operating system keeps the file, and cataloging is how does the operating system keep a file so that it can be retrieved easily later. Okay. Example, when let's talk about catalog. When you download a file from the internet, automatically these files are cataloged as downloads and are kept inside the download folder unless you change it. Same goes to if you download a picture or you save a picture. Let's say you're doing something on Photoshop and you save it as a picture, automatically it'll be saved inside the picture folder. Okay, so it automatically catalogs a file accordingly. So if you're doing Word document, if you're doing documents, automatically it will be saved inside the My Documents folder. And if you're, let's say, for example, you just install a particular file, then automatically it will go inside program files. Okay, so this is how the operating system catalogs a file. Why is it necessary to catalog a file? Simply because when the operating system search for a particular file, it can be easily retrieved, or the user, you and me, can easily retrieve. So we know the documents are inside My Document. We know pictures are all stored inside pictures. Okay, and how does the operating system store a particular file? Okay, storing is very, very important because this is where all your files are, all the operating system files are. Okay, so in a modern operating system where it's possible for several users to access the same file simultaneously, it has also become necessary for such features as access control and file protection. Okay, so in modern day operating system, one file can be accessed by multiple users. So there need to be access control, meaning who uses that particular file first and what are the type of protection. Some people can only view, some people can edit. Okay, so and there's also access. For example, if when I share to you a file in my Google Drive, you are only able to view. Some you can edit because I want your information, so I make it editable by you, and it can be accessed by multiple users. So there are certain features that is available inside file system. All right. So if the question comes up, what is a file system? So you use the definition in the orange part here. Mechanism for three things: storing, cataloging, and retrieving. So these are the three main points that you need to understand when explaining about file system. Okay, so the file system contains collection of files, metadata, directory structure, and partitions. These are the important things that you need to understand. Okay, so when we talk about file system, it's a collection of files. That means a file system is actually the operating system keeps a collection of files. It can be a picture file, it can be a music file, Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, so on. But each file contains data. And we are also looking at metadata, properties of the file. Okay, information. So the operating system also keeps this. Who created the file? When was it created? Where is it stored? So these are metadata. Metadata means the properties of a particular file. Or metadata itself means properties. So if you talk about metadata of yourself, you have your IC number, so these are metadata. Your license number, license plate, driving license number. Okay. Next, we also look at partitions. So what are partitions? Partitions are storage inside the operating system, and is divided accordingly. Is divided according to the type of file, according to catalogs, according to type of the file, according to what is the file about. Okay, is it a application file? Is it just a Word document file, and so on and so forth. All right. So basically, this is how your typical file structure looks like. You have your directory at the top, okay, here, or you can have it in this format. Format number one, this means you have two partitions. C, let's say partition A, partition B, or maybe you want to know it as partition C and D. So all the files can be put here and here. Why is this only this one? Yes, both of these are in one disk, but we break it into two different partitions. Or maybe you can do it in a different format, whereby two different disks, but both share the same directory. Okay, both share the same directory. So this is also possible. Okay, so what is by definition, what is a file? A file is a collection of binary numeric character. File could represent program, document, or part of the file. Okay, so when we say what is a file, so a file could be a program pun file juga, a document pun file juga, or part of the file system. What is part of the file system? Contohnya, when you do programming, for example, C++ ke Java ke, your code file is .cpp kan, but bila you compile the file, you will get a .io file, a .exe file. So these files yang additional ni are part of the file system. Example, kalau you buka folder Windows, you'll see so many files. Okay, so these are part of the Windows operating system part. Okay, so these are some definitions that you need to know. The last definition here, all files must have a name, biasalah, by which they can be accessed by the user. In most modern file system, the name consists of three parts: unique name, period, and extension. Example, say testing.pdf. So testing is the unique name, period, PDF is the extension. So that's a definition of a file. So what are the properties of a file? A file must have a name, must be identified uniquely. Okay, each file. So the operating system will keep this information about a particular file attribute. So a file must have a name, must be uniquely identified, must be typed. Type is something like extension lah. What kind of type, or what type of file is it? Is it a PDF? Is it a Word document file, Excel, PowerPoint? Maybe it's just a movie, MP3, MP4. Okay, where is it stored? The location of the file, the time, when was it created, user identification, okay, who created the file, and things like that. So these are all talking about the attribute of the file. Sorry. Okay, so when we talk about the file system, what what kind of operations can a file system do? Okay, a file system can, the operating system will provide the creation of the file. What do you mean the creation of a file? Well, how do you create a file? Right click, new file. How do you create a directory? Directory itu macam folder. How do you do that? Right click, new folder. Senang. And once you create the file, you can write on the file. Can. You create a Word document file. Can you write on the file? Yes. Okay, so you can write on the file. Next, we look at read. Can you read about the operating system will allow users to access the file system and to read the file. Read, yes, you do editing, so that's what you do. Oh, what do you mean by read? Read means it's not read the file. You access the file, you edit the file. Daripada 4 pages, you make it 6 pages. You delete paragraph 1, you delete paragraph 2. So these are the operations that is allowed inside reading. Next, you can reposition within file. That means you move the file. That means you put the file, let's say you change paragraph. You include a new paragraph, you delete a paragraph. Okay, so this is what you do. You reposition the file. Reposition the file does not mean you take the file from one folder, put it in another folder. No, it means you add on something to that particular file. Like you add a new paragraph, you add a new page. So that is reposition of a file. Delete. Okay, delete. Delete means you just delete the file. Okay, so you can go directly to the particular directory, you can delete it. Truncate the file. Truncate means you delete all the contents, but you keep the file name. Example, let's say the file has 10 pages. You delete all 10 pages, keep the file name. It's also possible. You open, okay, you double click, you open the file, and you close the file. Okay, that's now. All right, so you can also do appending of the file, append, add more information. You can rename the file, easy. You can copy, move. Copy means you copy from one file, one location to another location. Okay, copy means what's the difference between copy and move? Move, you directly change the whole original file from one location to another location. Copy means you make a replication of that particular file in a different location. These are the file types. Okay, if the question asks you what are the example of file types, so you have, these are certain examples. You have the zip file, text file, PDF, MP3, JPEG, HTML, the graphical interface interchange format image, GIF, so many. Okay, so you just need to remember this, and you know you can identify or list down the types of file. Okay, so this is how we access, how operating systems allow us to access a particular file. Okay, all right. Files contain information. Information must be accessed and read into memory for processing. Okay, so what does this mean? Let's say you double click a file. Okay, we double click a file, and then how does the operating system locate that file? That is the most important issue here. How does the operating system locate that particular file? So there are two access methods. One is called the sequential access, another one is called the direct access. So in the olden days, when you want to locate in the olden operating system, when you wanted to locate a particular file, you have to go through the sequential method. That means you have to check one by one. Example, you use this. This is the method lah. I use a tape recorder ni. So kalau you nak dengar lagu nombor 5, you have to listen to lagu nombor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until you reach that. Okay. So this was the old method. So you have to go through each file one after another. But in the new operating system, okay, we have the random access. That means you can access any file randomly. There's no sequence. You have to go one by one. You just open the folder that you need, get the particular file, and open it. That's all. Okay. So this is the difference between, this is through programming, the difference between sequential and direct access. Okay, so this is an example of a directory structure. Okay, so what is a directory structure? A directory structure is something where the operating system keeps all the files according to folders or according to its directory. All right, so obviously the Windows operating system files will have a folder by itself, and these are the files, and each file, each directory will have a file name and identifier, and this basically is the information of all files inside the operating system. All right, next we move on into information in a directory. Okay, what are the types of information that the operating system keeps in a particular directory? A directory, again, like I told you, means the folder. Okay, the folder of the files. That means inside this particular folder you have several files. So it keeps the name, type, address, current length, how big is the file, how big is the location, the files inside the folder, when is the last date, updated, access, and so on and so forth. All right. So these are certain operations that can be performed by the operating system. You can list the directories. How do you list all the directories? You just go to File Explorer. You can see all the files there. You can do a search, Control F. You can delete a file, you can create a file, you can rename the file. You can also do transverse. Transverse means it's like File Explorer. In one view, you can see all of the files. In MS-DOS, we use the function called dir. Okay, so why do we want to access a particular file? Okay, so the operating system provides efficiency, easily for users to look for a particular file, easily for you to rename or name a file, or you want to do grouping. Yes, you can do grouping, file search, file type, okay, group by, so and so. Okay, so these are the modern operating system where the operating system provides these functions. All right, and now we look at how these files are stored inside the directory or inside the hard disk. So we start with single level directory, then move to two level, tree structure, a cyclic, and journal graph. So basically now we are at point number 4 and 5, okay, the modern operating system. In the olden days operating system, we have one directory, one file, meaning to say one folder, one file, one folder, one file. So there will be a problem whereby you have, let's say you are looking at BO here. Inside folder BO, there is a file. And inside folder HUX, there is a file. Can these two files be the same? Yes, because it's in a totally different folder. But the problem will happen is, if you want to do grouping, let's say you want to find out the number of PDF files. So here put under PDF, here put under PDF. It's difficult to find a total. So grouping and naming, because you can have two files in the same name, two different locations. So that was a problem. So now then moved on to two-level directory. Two-level directory means you have two different users logged in. Or sorry, two different users in the system. Each of it have their own path. That means there is separate My Document for user number 1 and a separate My Document for user number 2. Okay, so the good thing about this is you in this method, the two-level directory is easy for you to search a particular file, but difficult for you to group a file. Why? Because it's totally different, because it's two different users. Let's say you want to find out the number of PDF files in the particular PC. So when you log in as Chris, it's easy to find because you can find it yourself. But when you log in as somebody else, it's difficult because you cannot access Chris PDF file. Right? So these are the advantages. Okay, this is what we say as a system file. Okay, system file here. Okay, these are system files. all inside the automatically inside the program file. This is by default done by the operating system. Okay, next we move on to tree structure. What is a tree structure? So basically a tree structure is what we are having now. In one directory, you can have multiple directories and multiple files. Okay, so this is what we have, a tree structure. So in this is another example of the tree structure. Folder inside a folder inside a folder. So in one folder, okay, in one directory, this directory here, one folder, we have multiple folders and multiple files. Okay, and when we have this, we have a item, or we have a thing called absolute or relative. Absolute or relative means something like this. This is an absolute path name because it shows you the correct path from the directory right up to the file. A relative path, it only shows you the last folder which the file is. Okay, let's say the file is inside DP. All right, so when you do a relative path name, it means that it will only show DP and the file name. Why is this important? Why do we need to understand about relative and absolute? Well, when you, let's say, change a particular file, you change your PC. So you want to copy this file into a different PC. Automatically, the file, because it's relative, it will update. Okay, it updates itself. So the same file name can be in the same location in a different PC. However, if you do it in an absolute path, it has to be in that particular path. Even if you change your PC, the file name cannot be detected. Okay, so that is the difference between absolute and relative path. Okay, I think we will stop here for today because I have something urgent coming up. So we will stop at slide 35, and I will see you in the next class. Please remember, next Monday, 25th of April, is your first quiz on chapter 1. Okay, chapter 1 next week, Monday at 2 p.m. And all the questions, I will post it up on YouFuture. All right. Do you all have any questions? So we stop here for today at slide number 35. Any questions?
All right.
So far? All right. Okay then. Thank you so much, and inshallah I won't see you on Monday because Monday straight you are going online for your quiz. I'll see you again next Thursday for our class. Okay. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.